Hi, I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Candid Conversations with Darrell Fitzgerald is a show where you will learn something new. It's a show for the courageous that wants to be engaged. A show where we discuss any issue that affects the lives of people. And a show where we take inventory of our live decisions. Welcome to Candid Conversations with Darrell Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations with Darrell, the show where we never sugarcoat, we go in depth, and we ask the hard questions that our viewers want to hear. On last week's show, we focused on the power of communication in art and business. And it was more of a focus on communication, effectiveness of communication in art. On this show, we want to address or divulge in the effectiveness of communication in business. And I'm happy to have the guest that we had last week, Brother Amin, with us again. So would you like to introduce yourself to our viewing audience?
Yes, my name is Darrell Amin, the Poet Amin. And it's a pleasure to be back on the show.
Well, thank you, Amin. And at the onset, I'd like you just to read one of your wonderful poems. Since you're here, can you grace us with your artistry, sir?
Okay, Brain Vomit. Hell was high, gliding through them dark skies, on life's ride that has been clearly disguised, the day the music died, crossing the border with origins of order, appointed to be in charge for having others slaughtered. As we all feel the wrath of their bloodbaths, personalities clash on this man-made path, watching time sit still as the days move fast, shining so bright at night, connected to the source controlling what I write, but not necessarily speak, trying to teach, left standing on his head using his hands as feet, protected the lion's nest from all them evil gods known as spirit scientists, holding on to swords, blowing up scrapers, believing that this world of the dead is above nature, pretending to be sharper than a box cutter razor with a deadly sweetener, poisonous flavor. But knowledge itself can be a lifesaver, aware of opposite attraction when levels of love are passing. Discipline means taking action, focusing on the right, downplaying the left, ruled by fear or the presence of death, realizing the joy of every breath, hauling lumber with the help of our Almighty Mother and Lord Father, providing sisters and brothers. Whenever one stood as proof of humanhood, doing all we could, bad or good, when it comes to once, and trust me, you would do whatever it takes to continue eating the food they make, because individually we might be damned by what seems to be confusion or whatever we can't understand. Within the whole universe, as in across the land, thinking probably not is how we can continue to communicate with Mr. Poetry Man. But this word trickery fools you. Yes, we writers have been schooled too, giving it your all, rather we win or lose. The mind is our tool, so don't blow a fuse on this space galaxy cruise watching other planets move. And now feeling obnoxious from serving the consciousness, remembering every little thing that will someday be missed, without logic, designing false prophets. Not Christ, Allah, Buddha, Jah, or Muhammad, but the spiritual poet who couldn't control his brain vomit.
Wow, the spiritual poet who couldn't control his brain vomit. And I think that's a real powerful descriptive there. And I think it has a lot to do with the topic that we're discussing today. Effective communication in business. Because I see things that affect people in business that prevent business from actually being done. And it almost appears to me like people are suffering from a certain level of brain vomit. There seems to be limitations in why people can't work together or complete projects together, So in terms of effective communication in business, Brother Amin, what does that mean to you, to be effective in your communication in business?
Well, like I said last episode, speaking clearly, coming across, for example, I love poetry, and I do this from the heart. And just not too long ago, someone came up to me, and it was about the community, and they was putting together some type of video or whatever for the homeless, and he wanted some poems to be recited and so forth, and asked me, can I write a few poems that somebody else can recite? And I was like, well, I don't have, I had no problem with that. And he was like, well, I got another poet, and y'all both can collaborate, and and so forth. So I went to meet the individual, and we sat down, and I'm taking my notes, and I'm ready to go all in, and it's for the community, right, is what he told me. But then it was a question asked, are we getting paid? And he said yes. So I was like, oh, what are we getting paid? Like, because that getting paid never came about. I was doing this from the heart.
Right.
And then he told me, well, don't worry about that right now. Just, write the poems. And, so that just coincided with what you said about business not getting done. See, that was something like I really would have enjoyed doing, whether I get paid or not. But, let's speak clearly. Like, if you asking me to do this for you, I'll do it. But now it's me and another poet, and you're telling this other poet that we're going to get paid. So I want to know what we're going to get paid.
Right. Stay true to the word you speak. Stay true to the meaning you put forth. If he said that, even though money wasn't the issue for you in the beginning, when someone else inquired about the money, he said, yeah, there was going to be money involved. So I wouldn't find it to be odd if you asked me, hey, you know what, well, are we getting paid? And what are we going to get paid? And then all of a sudden he acted as if that question was irrelevant after he already said that people would get paid. So it didn't appear like he was being clear or being honest or being truthful or keeping his word. And oftentimes projects aren't done, relationships aren't built, relationships are dissolved because people are not communicating effectively in business, meaning that they're not being clear, they're not being accurate, they're not being honest about their motivations, their purpose. Sometimes they may not even be valuing the other individual that they are trying to do business with. You see, yes. So what would you say would be a characteristic that would reflect a good communication in business?
Honesty. Yeah, on the individual, because you have businessmen out there that aren't even artists, but they consider themselves businessmen, and they like to, but you have some. I want to be clear. You have some that's pure at heart and are very clear and honest about what they're doing and what they're trying to do and what and so forth. Then you have some that feel they can, take your art, whatever type of art it is, poetry, visual art, whatever, and that we're gonna do this art gallery or whatever, and like without thinking of the artist, like just using the artist. So I think honesty, like if you be honest with it, honesty is the foundation of recovery, which I'm also in recovery, so forth. So like that's what they told me from the very beginning. Like we have to be honest with ourselves.
Would you say that accountability and communication in business is important too? Like, having accountability, meaning that if I say I'm going to do something or I'm going to provide a specific service, should not do it. Should not be accountable. Would you agree?
Yes.
That a good business person is a person who is accountable and accountable in their communication?
Yes,
Right.
because if not, then we're back to the topic again. The brain, it's like brain vomiting. Like you came in and you laid down the foundation, but you didn't go through with it.
No follow up.
No follow up.
No follow up. Right. That's kind of interesting. You shared an experience, and I can see where if you don't have effective communication in business, how there can be a breakdown. I had a situation myself where it seemed as if, you know how they say you're only as good as your weakest link. I say you're only as good as your weakest leak. Sometimes, it's the things that people spill out of their mouths that affect a business and affect the business relationship. Sometimes talking too much, speaking too much about specific things. There we go again with that brain vomit. Is that they leak too much, or they leak too much information about something, and that kind of affects things. I like what you said about honesty. I had a situation where it seemed as if someone was able to influence another person who I was going to be involved with business. And I just simply wanted to, in terms of an inquiry, I wanted to find out, hey, well, what exactly was said? What was exactly said? And you don't have to tell me the exact person and who said what, but what was said, because I wanted to deal with the accuracy of what was actually being said. Hey, if it's true, me being honest, I'd admit it. I say, hey, I said it. But if it's not true, we need to address the fact that it's not true. You see?
Yes.
So I can relate to what you're talking about in that, we have to be open in terms of our communication. I don't know why people feel as if they can't be open with each other. They seem to be so concerned about being politically correct, or what a person's going to think about if I say this, or if I'm honest about this, or if I, then would you say that that reality has something to do, the characteristic reality has something to do with affecting the business and the business relationship, whether or not we're dealing with reality or accuracy? Does that affect the business? For example, let me say, if I told you, if I led you to believe, right, that I had a budget, right? Let's say I told you I had a budget of $5,000 for a project. I led you to believe, whatever way, I led you to believe. You might look at me a certain way because I look good, I dress good. You might see me drive a certain car, and so you say, well, you know what, this person must have access to a certain amount of money. So you wouldn't question the fact that I had this amount of money for a budget, right? You probably wouldn't question it. But let's say I really didn't have that money for a budget. Let's say I told you $5,000 I had for this project, and I really didn't have $5,000 for this project. Now, what would you think about me as a business person? I got you involved with my project.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that I have it covered. I have a budget of $5,000 to invest, and I incorporate you and hire you. Say, come on, Poet Amin. How would you feel?
Well, I would see the individual as, scheming. They had to be some type of intentions, for you to. What was it all about, really? If you saying you got $5,000 for the budget, but you don't, and so what was the point? Like, did you want us all to come together and make something happen, and then make money and act like you had the money? Like, it would be a lot going through my mind. That's just the type of individual I am. I do collaboration books. I have done 3, and all poets are welcome to be involved. It doesn't, because I noticed they got certain crews and cliques in the state of Connecticut where they do their poetry readings, and they don't want to come to certain poetry readings, but they want you to come to theirs, and and they only read in Middletown or they read in West Hartford, but they won't come to New Britain to my reading unless they're a featured poet. And I'm like, nah, I don't do featured poets, whether you're published or non-published. We're all equal. Everybody's going to do 2 to 3 poems, and we're going to keep it moving to the next poet, right, and so forth. But doing these collaboration books, you know, I came across people. I completed 3 strong, solid books, but I still come across people like, well, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, they don't want to put nothing in the book, like if my word ain't bond, and like this is my proof. There, you know, all I'm asking for is $5, and you're gonna be in a published chapbook,
right?
You know,
that would appear to be a small amount to ask for a person to be have to be a participant in the book, given that maybe you made an investment, a financial investment, and that you are dealing with the lines portion, which is a major cost of printing and production of the book. That would probably seem like a small amount. I think a lot of times mutual benefit, you know, in terms of communicating the deal or trying to create the relationship, maybe people don't look at mutual benefit or look at the value of all parties involved in terms of a project. You know, the fact that the writer plays a role, you being the person who, let's say, is an orchestrator of a poetry reading or the ones who put this book together, you play a role. But every single individual in part, if they work in harmony, or they work as a team, where there's no I in team, they can get this work done, and the project could be completed. So I really do appreciate, once again, we ran out of time, brother Amin, but I appreciate you coming on the show and communicating on Candid Conversations with Darrell. Thank you, viewing audience, for tuning in again to Candid Conversations with Darrell, which airs on www.accesstv.org, Channel 3. Take care. We'll continue the conversation next week.